evening, everyone. Good evening, good morning. Looking at the various people coming in. Nice to see you all. Always like to see, yeah, wave your hand if you're sort of here for the first time. I want to see if anybody's, okay, okay, Gail, hi Gail, and is it Pele? And then who else? Going to that, raise your hand again, anyone else? Okay. Oh yeah, then we've got Asante, hi, welcome. Very nice. Ah, and there's Raymond. Hi, Raymond. Fancy seeing you here. Nice. Lovely. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to Dive In with Don. So this is, as many of you know, this is a forum dedicated to the practice of inquiry. And we've been spending our last couple of meetings talking about things related to meditation and mindfulness. And in some ways, we're going to sort of continue that theme this evening. I'm going to continue looking at that. And part of that is, you know, the whole purpose of this forum and the things we record here and the meetings we have here is to raise people's awareness of the practice of inquiry. I want to help people become more aware of it and discover it because it's such a glorious practice and, you know, so few people really know about it yet. And a lot of people know about meditation. So we're hopefully by talking about some things about how these two practices interact, that'll be useful, kind of help people who are meditators to discover inquiry. So it's a public forum. Everybody's welcome to come. It's free. There's no cost. And we do it sort of roughly once a month. Feel free to let anybody you know about it. So if you get something useful out of it, feel free to share it. We share the recordings on our YouTube channel and on the website, divein.life. And so you can go back and have a look at past episodes. I think of it a little bit like a podcast, even though strictly speaking, we haven't got it onto a podcast platform yet. And yeah, so it's a very practical session. So in the session, we're going to do a little bit of practice. I'm going to do a little bit of a talk, and then you're actually going to look into something for yourself. I want you to, you know, inquiry is all about finding out what's true in your own experience. So you're going to have a chance to look a bit into that, into a particular angle of that. We have here people of all levels of experience too. So that's what we're saying. There's people who've been meditating and inquiring for decades, and there are people who have never inquired before, and maybe people who are, you know, sort of everywhere in between. So it's one of the beauties of this forum is that hopefully there is something in it for everyone. So we're going to begin as we usually do with a short practice. And each session we begin with a practice that has a little theme of the topic we're going to be talking about. So we're going to begin with a short meditation today. So I'd like you to find an optimal posture for your meditation. So that means you probably have your feet on the ground. You want to be sitting in such a way that your spine can be upright and relaxed. You don't want to be tense or uncomfortable. It's always good with meditation to take a moment with your posture so that you don't spend half the meditation fussing, you know, with your body and with your posture. And take a nice breath. Here you are, you've made it to the session. You're here to be with yourself, to maybe learn something about yourself, about your inner world. And so just notice as we start how you're feeling, what sort of space you're in. Notice how your mind is and what you sense in your body. Just a quick inclusion of all of those things. So the meditation we'll do is a concentration meditation that I'm sure many of you know, and some of you don't. And we will focus on our belly center. So you can let your eyes close and let them close gently. Wiggle your jaw, just release any tension in there. You might rock your head back and forth, side to side. Just release any tension in your neck. And then begin to notice the sensations of your torso as you breathe. The inhale, expanding with the inhale, contracting or relaxing with the exhale. And then more specifically, let your attention come to your lower belly. So you want to invite your felt sense attention down to the lower belly area, the area below your belly button. So get in touch with the actual sensations you can feel there. Your belt, your hand, the warmth of your hand. You can rest one hand in the other and then cup them up against your lower belly. That can bring some extra sensation there. You may sense the wall of your belly moving as you breathe. And as you sense that general area, you may, especially if you've been doing it for a while, be able to sense a specific point, particular point of presence. A couple of fingers down from the belly button and a couple of fingers inside. So in various traditions called the hara or the dantian, the diamond approach, it's called the calf. And if you don't sense it, don't worry. Just sense whatever you can sense there. Any sensation in your lower belly. Now, our meditation is a concentration practice. So you're going to place your attention there in your lower belly. And your job is to stay there, to keep attending to that actual sensation. You can let go of everything else, all the other things you might be thinking about, worried about, all the interesting things going on in your inner world. It's all fine, feelings, sensations. You can let it be there, but it's not where you're putting your attention. You're placing your attention on your lower belly, on your calf, if you can sense it. And you want to do this in as unbroken a way as you can, maintaining that focus on the belly. And if your attention wanders off at some point, then you're getting caught up in thinking about things or exploring something in your inner world. As soon as you notice that, you let it go and you come back to sensing your belly. And we're going to sit together and practice for a few minutes. And then let go of that practice with the next exhale. So you can release the concentration. And let your awareness open up. Just being aware of whatever it is that's going on for you. Whatever's arising. Maybe thoughts, feelings, sensations. Just want to sit there and just be aware of it. Not doing anything with it, just noticing in an open, friendly way, whatever happens to appear in your experience. From moment to moment. And then bring your attention down to your feet. Sense your feet. Actual sensations of your feet on the ground. Your legs. Your butt in the chair. Really connecting with your legs. And then sense your hands and your arms. Your shoulders. Getting in touch with your arms. Sensing your arms and legs. And then add listening. Sensing the sounds, including the sounds. Really listening. And then finally, let your eyes gently open and begin looking, including your visual sense. You're looking, colors, and light and dark objects. So you're sensing, looking, and listening. Sensing, looking, and listening. So I want to be a little provocative here. Don't usually be provocative, but maybe today will be a little provocative. Like who likes the meditation? Who likes the Kath meditation? Handful of people. Who doesn't like it? Who doesn't like the Kath meditation? Put up your hands. Handful of people don't like it. Oh, we got lots of Kath meditation fans here. And who had a good meditation? Quote unquote, good meditation, whatever that means. A couple of good meditations. Who didn't have a good meditation? Who had a lousy meditation? Okay. Nice. So one of the things as we begin meditating brings into our awareness various, let's say, things going on in our inner worlds. Right? So in a concentration meditation, you sit down, you place your attention, you've got a specific focus, right? You're going to place your attention, in this case, on the belly center. You're going to hold it there. And for a long time, some people can't find the belly center. Like, Kath, what are you talking about? I've been doing this for 5 years and I still can't find my calf. Where is my calf? Where is this belly center? It's actually not an easy thing to feel. Then you stay with it for about 30 seconds and then off you go. And like drag yourself back. And there might be some sort of commentary in your head about, oh God, you still can't meditate properly. What's going on? Or there's some chattering in your mind, like thoughts going all the way through. You meditate for 20 minutes. Like, it just doesn't stop the whole time. Anybody ever had that experience? Never? It's never happened to you. It's just always quiet. Right? Tell me how you do that. Right? And then what happens? You end up feeling sort of a bit bad about it. You don't feel great about it. Don't really enjoy your meditation practice because can't seem to do it, or maybe like once in a blue moon, it seems to actually go well. You have those moments where it's like really deep and silent and quiet and magnificent. And it happens like just often enough to keep you coming back and slugging through the other periods where it's anything but, where it's noisy and chatty and uncomfortable, or there's tension in your body and you just can't settle down. So actually, a lot can go on around our meditation practice. Right? So the simple act of practicing our concentration exposes, all kinds of stuff going on in our inner world and revealing sometimes just how challenging it can be to place our concentration, keep it steady. Mindfulness meditation or awareness meditation, which we also use at a certain point in the Diamond approach, brings its own set of challenges. Like you sit there and you're just aware. Okay, I'm just aware of what's there. I'm just going to be aware of it. Right? And then what you're aware of is that you're feeling pissed off about something. Or what you're aware of is like just this discomfort in your hip, and you're like, oh, can't I be aware of something nice? Or you're aware of some kind of feeling that actually you didn't even know you had, or some thought that pops into your mind that you like, can't believe you're thinking that kind of thing. How could I be thinking that? How could I be sitting here feeling like hatred or anger, or still hurt about something, or still in touch with this like young part of my soul? I feel like a kid again. And I'm sitting here and I'm trying to meditate, but that's actually what's kind of popping into my awareness. So whatever kind of meditation you do, chances are that it kind of opens up in different ways, depending on the practice, your awareness and your recognition of what's going on in your inner world. And especially if it's a mindfulness meditation, if you're just being aware of things, at some point, sooner or later, you will start becoming aware of things that you didn't know you were thinking or feeling, sensations you never had before. The practice by its very nature starts revealing more. So it's like you lower yourself down into this ocean of your inner world. And with the meditation, like with a concentration meditation, you try to stay steady. And the inner world kind of knocks you around, and the waves come, and creatures, and all sorts of stuff happening. And with the mindfulness meditation, you just become aware, like you're just looking around and you realize, oh my God, there's like a whole thing down there that has never swum into my awareness before. That just going about my daily life, I never became aware of that thing. That I had that feeling or that thought or that sensation in my body. So the meditation practice of itself, by its nature, kind of going to start interrupting the usual patterns by which we keep our inner world in familiar places, in comfortable and safe and familiar places. And it's going to start admitting, making us aware of things outside of the usual. It's not an accident, right? That's what's supposed to happen. Right? So it is what happens. So one of the things that can happen there that is, I think, under discussed in the context of meditation. One of the things that from our contemporary understanding of psychology is not only likely to happen, but at some point pretty much guaranteed to happen, is that at some point your inner critic is going to get activated, your superego. Right? Now, you may not think of that. That might not be a familiar concept to you. And if you're not aware of that, if one is not aware of this possibility, all that you'll notice is that, you're beating yourself up about your practice. You're like, oh, why the hell can't I meditate? What the hell's wrong with me? Why can't I get more quiet? I'm useless. I'm never going to amount to anything. There'll be that kind of dialogue. You might sit down to meditate, and there's the whole time there's that dialogue in your head. Oh, you're useless. You haven't got the hang of this. Or maybe there's just that low grade feeling of like, oh, I don't really like this. It doesn't make me feel good. I don't seem to be very good at it. I'm not even really sure why am I meditating. And, many people start getting to those kind of experiences in their meditation. It's very easy to become discouraged. You give up. Oh, this meditation doesn't work for me. I can't really do it. It's just not my thing. Other people like meditation. I'm just not that good at it. And instead, what's actually happening is, in a certain way, the meditation is opening things up within your inner world, and that's activating this particular structure, this thing that we call the superego. Right? So I think meditators would really benefit from knowing about this, right? Because it's something that with inquiry, we discover and we make explicit and we see how to work with. And I will say that I remember teaching a retreat, a weekend in London, probably about 6 years ago. And, there were people on there, it was a weekend, there were people there who'd, been inquiring and exploring for many years, right? And someone was saying, like, they were talking about meditation and just saying, my superego just makes me feel terrible. I'm just under attack the whole time about my meditation from my superego. And to those of you who are familiar with with the superego and kind of working with it, I want to say to you, that is like a really important thing to kind of put a ring around and not to just let it run. Right? You don't want to be beating yourself up about your practice or feeling shitty about your meditation, right? Which is a manifestation of some kind of superego and judgment, right? And not actually take that seriously. And so what people do, they sit down, they meditate, they feel cuck, they get to the end of the practice, they get up, they're like, oh, phew, okay, that's done. Now I can do some inquiry, or now I can go and do something else. And it's only when they reflect back on it and you actually say, well, what's going on there? And then they realize, oh, my inner critic's been going the whole time at me about how I'm doing in my meditation practice. It's only at that point that they might even recognize that there's something to kind of work with there. They might not have even sort of clocked it. So step number one then really is to recognize the reality of this possibility. You know, that there is this thing called the inner critic. There is this force within our psyche, and its job is to kind of keep everything in equilibrium, to keep everything in the realms of what is familiar and safe and known. What is essentially the solution that your ego structure found in childhood, right? The superego is the bit that says, that kind of enforces it. You can be like this, but not like that. You should do this. You should be good at that. You shouldn't be too too big for your boots, right? And it has all of these ideas about how you should and shouldn't be. Anything where you start noticing a should, you can start getting curious about, oh, maybe this is a judgment. This is some superego. I should be doing better at this. I should be able to meditate. I should be more quiet. Well, who says? So meditation, by kind of disturbing that equilibrium, allowing feelings and thoughts and things to come into your awareness that ordinarily don't really get much of a look through. They will naturally activate the inner critic, naturally. It's almost guaranteed to happen. Right? Because the whole job of the inner critic is to keep the things that you shouldn't be aware of, or you shouldn't be thinking, or you shouldn't be feeling. Like, we shouldn't get angry. We don't do anger. Put that anger away. You sit down and meditate, suddenly you're in touch with some kind of anger. Your inner critic is going to get on your case. There'll be some voice or some feeling. Often it's not, until we really work with it, it might not be a voice. It might be just a feeling. All you know is you feel like, oh, that's bad. There's this anger. It shouldn't be here. Like, shouldn't be happening. It's wrong. It's bad. The inner critic is really the direct counterforce, the opposite of inquiry. Because in the practice of inquiry, we're kind of open and curious and just want to know about everything that shows up. Like anger. Ooh, that's interesting. What is this anger? Let me find out what's true about it. I'm just having fantasies of wanting to kill this person. Oh, that's really interesting. How come that's arising in my consciousness? Inquiry is like open to everything, open to it, curious, just want to find out about it. Meditation practice, the same. You sit down, you meditate. If you're doing mindfulness, like whatever comes into your consciousness, you're just aware of it. It's like you don't do anything about it. But your personality naturally is set up to get rid of all the unacceptable things. And it's not only negative things, right? It could be like wonderful. You have like some beautiful state of love. You're sitting there and actually there's all this love arising. Some part of you going like, what the hell? You better pull yourself together. There's no room for getting all soft and mushy. So the superego can really attack anything that's basically out of the normal, out of the norm. Anything that's showing up, instead of being open to exploring, being curious about the truth, they'll tend to want to get rid of it. And so just as meditation is guaranteed to, in time, activate the inner critic, the practice of inquiry itself will do so like on steroids, will do so even more. Because with the practice of inquiry, we are not only letting ourselves sit there and notice what comes by, but we're actually daring to dive in and to explore and to actually articulate and discover and try to understand what's arising in our experience. We try and follow it to deeper and deeper parts of us. So it's not just like the little tentacle of the octopus that sticks out and the superego goes, what's that? That shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be thinking that. With inquiry, you're going to follow the tentacle. You're going to follow it all the way down to the giant octopus. Superego is going to have a field day, right? You definitely shouldn't have that. That shouldn't be here. That's bad. And so you can tell because it has these various feelings. We feel guilty, we feel bad, feel ashamed. We just kind of feel slightly depressed about things, right? There's this sort of litany, or you find yourself arguing the whole time. No, well, it's fine. I'm really trying with my meditation. I'm really doing my best. You're kind of just arguing with it. You are effectively in a conversation, having a conversation, trying to convince, you may not even be aware there's something else on the other side of the conversation. You're just having this inner argument with yourself about how actually you're doing fine and you don't want to be, it's all okay. But how come you're having that argument? How come you're having that conversation? You're obviously responding to some other force in your psyche that's saying it isn't fine. Right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be having that whole dialogue. So I think people with meditators and inquirers alike, I mean, in the diamond approach, we recognize the inner critic right away, right at the beginning. It's kind of one of the first things we work with. We go, this is going to come up. You got to know about it. You got to be prepared. It's going to happen, even if it's not happening now, at some point it will. And we learn how to work with it. Meditators, I think a lot of the time don't have, right? There isn't as much awareness of the phenomenon, right? And how to work effectively with it. One thread that you see in the mindfulness tradition, right, involves actually recognizing the judgment. Like, oh, I'm really beating myself up. I'm kind of getting down on myself and I'm being really harsh to myself. And they talk a lot about sort of practicing self-compassion. So when you recognize you're beating yourself up, you try to rather be compassionate with yourself. You recognize that it's not compassionate to beat yourself up. And you want to be compassionate because that's one of the sort of central values. So you try not to do it. You try to practice self-compassion. In the diamond approach, we see that is definitely, compassion is a big piece of the puzzle. But we get to it in a slightly different way with inquiry. So with inquiry, when you start to see the inner critic, you see, well, I'm beating myself up, or I'm feeling bad about what's going on. The first thing you want to do is to get explicit about it. You actually want to see this thing. You need to see this phenomenon arising in your consciousness. You need to recognize, oh, I'm having some kind of judgment here. And often that can mean like putting down the judgment into some sort of pithy statements. You're useless. You're pathetic. You'll never amount to anything. You can't meditate. You're not enlightened. Right? They're usually those kind of statements, those kind of pithy, fairly unpleasant, attacking statements. Right? That's really what a judgment is. That's why it feels so bad. You're basically being attacked. So the one thing is to kind of recognize it. And then the next thing is like often when you really recognize that statement and you see like, how does that affect you? You might recognize, wow, it just makes me feel terrible. That's really painful. I feel really hurt. And makes me feel bad about my meditation or bad about whatever area of my life. There's like nothing nice about this. And it may be that as you recognize and feel the pain of it, the hurt of it, the truth of how hurtful it is, that can often precipitate compassion. The kindness just arises. You go, oh my God, I feel so kind of sorry for myself. Or I feel this kindness for myself for all the suffering that is basically causing me. So we see that the compassion arises in the recognition of the suffering that that inner critic is causing. So you're not trying to make yourself compassionate. You're actually feeling the hurt and recognizing the hurt, the truth of that. And that truth of its nature invites compassion. Then we tend to get more gentle with ourselves. Never forget a friend of mine talking about this in the context of meditation. And he just went, oh my God, I'm riding myself so hard. I just can't believe it. Right? This is like so down on myself. And just that, like that clear recognition was enough to bring about this sense of sorrow and compassion and gentleness. Right? It comes together with the hurt, really, with feeling the hurt. We also see when practicing inquiry that the compassion alone actually is not enough. Right? That simply compassioning away the inner critic, certainly trying to make yourself be kind, I think is I don't want to be cynical, but like good luck with that. Right? That's really tricky. But trying to compassion away the inner critic. So the compassion arises, you'll notice in how I was talking about it, that the compassion arises in response to seeing and feeling the hurt that we're feeling, the hurt of the self. Like, wow, I'm really having a hard time here with my inner critic's making me feel bad about my meditation. That hurts. And that brings about some kindness. A different response tends to happen when we actually look at the inner critic itself. You think to yourself, okay, well, here's effectively some inner force, some voice in my head telling me I'm shit, going, you're useless. You're useless at meditating, or that was terrible. What's wrong with you? Right? So it's another thing to actually recognize the truth that that's kind of what's happening. That's actually what's happening is some voice, some message is coming at you in this mean, attacking way. One of my favorite questions when somebody recognizes that is just to say, so, like, how do you feel about that? Do you like it? I don't think anybody has ever said to me, yeah, I really like that. I really like having these mean, attacking voices coming at me. And almost invariably we go like, no, I don't like that. I don't want that. That's hurting me and I just don't want to be spoken to like that. And that's the kind of first beginning of another kind of response. So when we really let ourselves see the attack and hear it and recognize, okay, like often it shows up like a voice on your right shoulder. Many people have it over there, like, it's like sitting over there, like kind of giving me a hard time. And as you recognize it and you recognize the message, and there's something talking to you like that, at some point you start to feel, just go away. Go away. Get away. Shut up. I don't want to listen to that anymore. So some kind of strength, some kind of natural aggression, and it can show up as anger, like some kind of anger arises. Tell it like, just fuck off and leave me alone. I don't want to listen to that. And this arises again as a natural response to the recognition of the attack, that this voice is basically attacking you and making you feel lousy. There are many other things as well. So those I mentioned, and I've discussed both of these in my book, Diving in the Inner Ocean. Right? Both of these are discussed in the chapter on the magic of inquiry. right? Where we see how simply recognizing the truth of something often elicits some essential response. That's really a magical thing. And so there are many different magical things that can happen, not just those two. But I wanted to mention those two because I think it's an interesting sort of counterbalance, either to the popular approach of just trying to meditate your way through it, because I think that's just challenging. You sort of line yourself up for many, many years of sitting, slugging. Eventually you let it go. There's a kind of breakthrough, right? Or of just trying to use compassion to deal with the inner critic, right? It's an approach. It's better than nothing, right? But when you bring in these two angles, seeing the hurt it's causing and seeing the attack and allowing yourself to actually just respond, see how you feel about having horrible messages come at you, right? That can allow a much more rapid, effective transformation, so that your meditation is not weighed down all the time by your inner critic. It really is possible. It's possible for that not to be the case. So I think I've kind of, probably as usual, said way too much, gone on way too long. And I want to give you just a few minutes to kind of look into this for yourself. Right, so you're going to find yourself in a breakout room with a partner, just two people, and you'll each have just 5 minutes. And we want to take 5 minutes and just look into, if you meditate or if you inquire, just look into, is this inner critic thing, this phenomenon that I spoke about a bit, just see, do you recognize it? Is it something that shows up for you? How does it show up for you? In what sort of ways does it appear? So you just want to look into your own experience, whether it shows up while you're meditating or whether it shows up afterwards in relation to how you did your meditation, or whether you noticed that since you meditated at some point it started coming up around the things that you were beginning to feel, think, or sense. So I'm really just inviting you to take 5 minutes and just see what you see about this phenomenon for yourself. And then we'll come back for a little discussion. So that'll take 5 minutes each. We'll give you like just an extra 2 or 3 minutes to kind of get into the breakout room and, say hello. I want to remind you that whatever we say in the breakout rooms is confidential, right? So we record the whole session, but we don't record the breakout rooms. So it's really a space for you just to explore for yourself and see what you see. The person doing the 5-minute exploration, you're doing it completely just for you. It's just for you to see what you can see about your inner critic in your meditation. And the other person is just a completely silent, neutral witness. You don't say anything. You just sit there and witness and let them go wherever they go. And then you swap over. And so that'll take 10 minutes. And then we'll just come straight back here so that we can have a discussion together. We'll have some time for discussion. We'll probably start back here in about 13 or 14 minutes. Okay, so any questions about the exercise? If you're not going to do the exercise, I would ask you to drop off now and rejoin in about 15 minutes, because otherwise it messes up the breakout rooms that Susan is trying to set up. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. We have now some time for discussion, sharing, questions, comments, anything you'd like to share, or what did you notice for yourself? What did you find out about that? So if you could raise your electronic hand, so you'll float up to the top, and then we will call on you. So Ruth, Alice, go ahead. Oh, where are you? There you go. Hi.
I'm so familiar with the inner critic. And I wonder, so sometimes it's telling the truth. So what do I do with that?
Very
The thing
good.
that came up as I talked about it is there are other questions that I need to inquire and journal about
Mhm.
underneath this. Why is it calling me to focus on the negative instead of the positive?
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
what is it preventing me or distracting me from focusing on, which could be my vulnerability, my need for others,
Very good.
my connections. What
Yeah.
is it what is it doing that's keeping me focused in one direction rather than another?
So,
And how could I open more to the positive?
so these are really, really good inquiry questions, right?
Hmm.
As
Hmm.
you kind of, so just to notice that as you bring the phenomena into consciousness, right, actually talk about it and see how it shows up and what it does, then you can actually really get curious about it,
Hmm.
right? Actually find out what makes it tick, how come it has what allows it to get purchase, like how come it gets a grip on. But I
Hmm.
want to come back to the first question that you asked, which is what happens if what it says is true? And oftentimes, I don't want to say always, but oftentimes in the superego, there is a grain of truth, right?
Right, right.
You're getting attacked for something that you might think is true. And in that, it is useful to kind of begin to recognize that, okay, there's truth. That might be true. Those might be the facts, maybe, right? But to recognize the tone in which that truth is delivered, right?
Mm,
So one
mm,
thing to see, okay, there's truth, there's facts, but do you really need to be told it in a way that is so attacking and mean and, making you feel bad about yourself? Because the superego is not just neutral information, right? Do you see that? Do you recognize that?
right. And it tends to blow up. That's not the all of me. That's not the whole of me.
Right, right. And so how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't like hearing that.
Okay, so yeah, when you just sense yourself as you say that, I don't like hearing that,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, how is it to feel that? To feel that you don't like that? That's actually true. What's happening there?
Oh, I'm so many things. It's like, so if I criticize myself, then I'm looking to others to validate me. And where is the inner validation?
Okay,
Yeah. And that's I have to dig deep to find that.
right. So there's a question, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So what allows it to get purchase is that some part of me is looking for validation, right? There's a
Hmm.
part that's looking for validation. Well, you could get really curious about that. What is this part of me that's looking for validation?
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah, right. There's a whole inquiry right there. Again, do you see, not to try and change it or fiddle around with it, but just to recognize, oh, that's the truth. That's what's making it, what's giving it purchase.
That's a
So
much
you
more
can get,
vulnerable. Yeah, that's a much more vulnerable part.
okay, so you know something about it, it's more vulnerable.
Hmm.
And so you'll follow from there. Okay, what is this vulnerable part of me? You want to get curious about that and find out, see what that is.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh-huh. Right.
very helpful. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, you're welcome. Welcome. Thanks for bringing that forward. Yeah, anyone else?
Hello. Oh, I'm probably jumping the gun. Sorry, Mike.
Okay, well, we can have Bruce and then Michael. Go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, so uh, well, I don't think I experience my superego as an explicit voice.
Hmm.
I think I experience it more as like muscle tension. Um, and you know, I'm just reading something Hamid says about I don't like this word, narcissism, but he talks about some quite young part of us which hasn't given up omnipotence and specialness. And as you know, there is a part of me that has often, well, I think still, well, I think still believes I'm specially bad. So, you know, I don't suppose I'm really alone. It makes me tearful talking about this, but I don't suppose I'm really alone on this, but that it feels like there's quite a young part of me who had to work very hard when I was young to make myself look lovable to my mother. And at the same time, it was a really crazy making dilemma of like holding a gun to my head. And then I'd probably go into reverse and become counterphobic. So actually just putting this in such stark terms is useful in a way. Does this make sense that there are different degrees of muscle in people's superegos?
So what makes you call that superego? So
Well,
there's muscle. So what you're saying is there's some kind of muscle tension that you're aware of, right? And that seems you're connecting that with the superego. So I'm just asking, what's make that? Why do you make that connection?
well, I think that it's connected with idealizing. This is embarrassing, but I you know I like you know, I told you about watching Prince Harry's wedding and imagining meeting George Clooney's wife, and there's something about her dress and her beauty. It like unlocks part of my heart, and I also feel deeply ashamed. And it's like I don't normally allow myself to feel the depth of my longing, my appreciation, and it goes together with some kind of shame and self-effacement.
Okay, so what you can see there is, firstly, the first thing that we were talking about, that as you're getting in touch with this very sensitive, like usually very hidden part of you, right? That's now coming into your consciousness, coming more into consciousness as a result of both your meditation and your inquiry practice, right? So that's one thing to notice. Another thing to notice is that as that comes into consciousness, your superego, the inner critic, might get activated, that you shouldn't be feeling those things, or that's bad, or that's, you shouldn't want to be close to George Clooney's wife, and you shouldn't want all the kind of things that you might be feeling in there as will make you feel bad about. Right? Now, it's possible that that might manifest as some kind of tension in your body, right? That you kind of clamp up on it, and so that could be superego. That's a possibility. It may or may not be a voice. I think the litmus test for whether something is superego is you want to ask yourself, like, is it okay for this to be here? Does it feel like it's okay for the experience that's here to be here? Even if it's a difficult experience, are you okay for it to be here? Is it okay with you that it's here? Or are you feeling that it shouldn't be here? That there's something.
I think it's quite difficult. If I suppose I have had moments of really owning the red. It feels like a way in which the red has been taken prisoner, and I judge it.
Okay, so what, do you think the red is bad? Think it shouldn't be there?
Yes, that's the default opinion. Yes.
Okay. So really, that's what you think, Bruce?
Well, you see, I think it's bound up with an identification with my father, that there's some quite young bit of me, the part of me that's holding a gun to my head is afraid that if I'm like my dad, I shall be unlovable or something like that.
So I mean, I think we're getting into very sort of, yeah, it's a bit hard to say. Let's just put it that way. I couldn't really answer that question. You need to be in the immediacy of the experience to be telling what is actually arising.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really only from that direct contact that you'd be able to see. I don't know, we can talk about it purely theoretically.
Yeah, well, in a way, that's also helpful, because that's the whole thing of the DA, is this very direct, immediate experience, and I am getting close to stories about it, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just you can only find out what's true sort of from the direct immediacy of the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hey, Bruce, you're welcome. Michael, you had a hand up, and I see Sharon's got a hand up, so let's do Michael and then Sharon.
Yeah, it was just a kind of comment, really, that somebody from the Diamond Approach said to me the other day, are you interested in reviewing the superego? And my reaction was, I think I've got it. I think I've done it about once or twice. You know, I've really kind of covered this territory. And it's just so interesting, like listening to you tonight and feeling what emerges for me, just so much resonance and so much the deep kind of structured alignment to the superego and the project of it in my personality. Seeing that like makes me feel like, you know, it's just kind of funny that that was my reaction. Kind of funny that I could feel like I'm ever done with this, because it's so pervasive, and it just feels like it's just like an ongoing defense action, like part of the practice.
So just to point out there, that's lovely that you share that. And so I mentioned that if we see the suffering of it, it can bring compassion. If we see the attack of it, the aggression of it, it can bring strength or anger. And what you see is when we see just the kind of crazy, pervasive sort of absurdity of it, and the absurdity of thinking we're done with it, it brings lightness.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Just, it's like, you know, there's a lightness with it. I know you don't seem to be judging yourself about that.
No, I'm just so kind of, yeah, I'm amused by my own folly, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like,
so, which is so different than kind of coming down on yourself or judging yourself.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you, Don.
And I think that's true. You know, we do, I think we all go through that. We like go through pain, you know, there are phases when you're less aware of it and more aware of it. But, you know, a lot of the time, if you really, for a long time, if you just take the time to look, you know, it's kind of, it's pretty over the show. Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just interested once the ears pricked up when Bruce was saying about the constrictions since the retreat, and I think even maybe before that, but it really has kicked in big time since the retreat. Is this, you know, you talked about usually my inner critic is quite audible, and I can, you know, I've done all the, you know, bang, you know, what all the stuff I've done. But and actually it turned to a bit more compassion after a Gestalt thing. But this feels like, you said low grade. This is a bit more than low grade, but just a feeling of kind of being in a soup of sort of shit, you know, like after the retreat, you know, the last retreat, which is was a very rich area for me. you know, it just feels, and I've got, it's in my back, it's in my neck. It's like this feeling of kind of like, I think it might be shame, you know, shame on me, sort of over my body, and just a feeling of like, get the fuck off of me.
Oh, I
You know?
see. Okay, yeah. What happens when you you feel that something all over you, right? And you
Well,
just
it's very animalistic. I mean, it feels like just like wanting to just get it off me, you know, feeling like get off me, you know. And it does, I don't, you know, it certainly doesn't, I don't want it here.
do you
know.
have a sense of what, so in the experience, what is it? What does it feel like that's on you?
It feels just like I don't know, like almost like kind of infected with something, or a kind of feeling of just something kind of stuck on me, you know.
So let me ask you, Sharon, in this moment, as you're with it, is it okay with you? Is it okay for this to be here? Like you're inquiring into it, you're
Well, I
exploring it.
mean, you know, I mean, I can't get rid of it.
Yeah, but I'm just to check, like you're not beating yourself up about the fact that this is showing up here. Yeah.
Well,
It's not your, it may not be a nice experience. I get that. It is an experience of wanting to get something out of you and off you,
yeah.
but you seem to be okay with engaging with that. Is that true?
Well, I don't really feel like I've got an alternative.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So it's in your face. You're dealing with it.
I don't really. It feels like I had it the other day. I actually felt like I felt like I wanted to die the other day. I was just with it, sort of like drowning in it.
So there's something here that makes you feel terrible. You don't want to be here. You want to get rid of it. Or you want to die and get away from it.
Yeah, it's just like just something about it. I mean, maybe it isn't the inner critic, but something about it kind of reminded me of some sort of yeah, just something very negative anyway. Maybe not the inner critic, but just something kind of negative.
Very good. Okay. So why I'm sort of drilling down a little bit on that is for two things. So firstly, my impression kind of sitting here with you is, so when one is having a superego attack, you feel bad. Like you feel like this, I shouldn't be having this experience. It shouldn't be here. I'm bad because of it, right? So it attacks and makes you, as your usual sense of self, feel bad, right?
Yeah,
And
no, I don't think this is quite
no,
what's happening.
that's not quite what's happening here, right? You're there, right? It's a horrible experience. There's something there you want to get rid of, and you're able to allow yourself and to feel that. And I would say in your inquiry, you want to really try that, like push it off or scrape it off or fling it off or like do whatever you need to do and see how that is.
I wonder if it's shame.
Well, I would just be very curious about it. There's something very interesting to explore there, right? That's just opening up. So I think there's an interesting inquiry for you there.
Okay, so maybe it's not the inner critic. Yeah.
And I would say it's not exactly the same thing as the inner critic. And these are like, it's quite a fine discrimination. I notice a lot of people there, they'll say it's their superego, but when you really look into it, it's not exactly. So what you're with there right now, you want to just keep inquiring, like allow that impulse, see how it affects you, like see what it's like to let that impulse happen and all of that. Just keep finding out about what's true there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. That helps. Yeah. Thanks.
Great. And then that's kind of a good moment to look at Michelle's question. So Michelle is saying, don't we need to inquire with it, face it, and with curiosity? And Michelle, I think that's true. We do, right? So we need to become present with it. We need to become conscious of it. I like how you say face it. Means we really have to see it. We've got to see the inner critic. We've got to see what the messages are. We've got to see how they affect us. And the main thing that we have to see as we do that is we have to see how it is stopping us or making us feel bad about something that's actually true for us, that's kind of showing up in our experience. And to let yourself be affected by that, which means to feel the pain of it, to kind of respond to that, to feel the aggression in it and respond to that. And all of that in time becomes a natural, what we call disengaging, that there becomes something develops in you that can go, okay, I see there's judgment about this, but you know what? I'm just not going there. I can recognize that there's judgment, but I'm not taken away from my main experience, from the thing that's going on here. I can still stay with it and continue inquiring. And when that happens, the superego hasn't got you. Right? At some point, you'll find, you may notice some point, like simply recognizing it. Oh, there's a judgment, is sometimes enough to just dissolve it. Until you open up something new, something newly sensitive in your experience, and then all of a sudden it comes in with all the, with all the power and ferocity that it can have, and then our work is cut out for us. So it definitely comes and goes in its intensity. So I'm curious to hear from anyone who's a meditator and maybe not in the diamond approach, or anybody who wants to share something specifically about their meditation experience and the inner critic. Just curious. Or from someone who's here for the first time, if you'd like to. What did you find? How was it to look into this? Did you notice anything useful or interesting? Or from anyone who thinks this is just not really a relevant topic, critic and meditation is just not a thing. That's also, I'd like to hear that too. Chart. Go ahead.
Yes, for me, I find that my inner critic, I like to listen to, because I too feel that there is some truth it's letting me know. And I can then make adjustments to what the critic points out to me and think, actually, yes, this is true. It was an incident where I had to, or where I found out that I was a more introverted person, and I was dealing with extroverted, and I couldn't fathom out why I couldn't fit in. And this is happening, quite a lot. And then I became aware that I was an introverted person and my needs were totally different. Mm-hmm. So the critic actually pointed that out to me. It pointed out to me, Irmtraud, you're not fitting in here. And then I explored further, and I found out that I have totally different needs to extroverted people.
Uh-huh. So let me ask you a question, Irmtraud. What makes you say the inner critic pointed that out?
I assume. I assumed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So in that experience, was there like a moment or a time where like there was a voice or something like that saying, you're different, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You've got, your needs are, in other words, was there some sense of being made to be bad because you had different needs?
Not really bad.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't a harsh attack.
Right.
it was just a pointer almost, and saying, Irmtraut, you know, something is not quite right here. And I assumed it was the critic. Who else can point that out for me?
Very good. Well, then this is just a wonderful question. I'm delighted you've got to ask it, because who says that's the inner critic, right? The inner critic is the part of you that makes you feel rubbish, right? That beats you up and makes you feel lousy. That sounds like there's some kind of intelligence there. There's some part of you that's like helping you recognize something happening and helping you see something true about it.
Yeah. I wasn't aware of the other, you know, what you just mentioned, the intelligence or some other guidance that pointed this out to me.
Very good.
Yeah, because there's 100 folds of different parts in us.
Indeed, there are all kinds of interesting things in us. Exactly. So sometimes what people think is the inner critic, not at all. And in that case, as you said, it's like there was some sort of recognition of some kind of truth. And
Yeah.
it seems like what made you think it was the inner critic is that you experienced it a little bit as another voice.
Yeah.
Right? As a voice talking to you, or as
Yes.
you were in dialogue with some part of yourself.
Yeah.
And because it was a voice, you thought, oh, it must be the critic.
Quite. Yeah. Not realizing that there. Yeah. Thank you. That's really quite enlightening.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So maybe so the trick to notice is when you hear a voice, or when there seems to be some sort of voice, you know, is it attacking you? Is it making
Right.
you lousy? Right? Or coming
Okay.
down on you? Or it also sometimes like gives you pats on the back, like, oh, well done, you know, good job. Right? So it's slightly patronizing. Good job, but like better not mess it up next time.
Right.
Those are the flavors of the inner critic.
Right.
Something else you could wonder, oh, well, where's that voice coming from? Like, as I hear that thought, like, what am I sensing? What am I feeling?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I hadn't explored that any, you know, to any depths. That voice that pointed out, why am I not fitting in? Yeah. Thank you. That's quite an insight.
Be very interesting. Yes.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for bringing that up. All right, everyone. That kind of brings us to time. So, you know, as usual in these short sessions, we just get to touch on something, just a little tweak, a little taste, stimulate a little interest, hopefully. I hope you got something useful out of it. And could be a whole, you know, long, interesting exploration for you. We'll be resuming next year. We haven't got dates up yet, but that'll be happening soon. Susan has put a whole lot of interesting, useful resources in the chat for you, including we've got a sort of online inquiry course that you can do that's also linked with some live sessions. We have live sessions on Tuesday evening that are like this, but much more in depth. Less talking, less teaching, and much more inquiry. So you get to do like a full 15-minute plus 5 with in a little group of 3, and then we have like 45 minutes of ongoing inquiry and Q&C with me. So those are things that you might be interested in checking out. And if you have any questions or comments or things that you'd like to see, like topics you'd like to see us address around meditation or inquiry or anything in the vein, please, I'd love to hear from you. So do be in touch.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I just read that it said the next dive in with DOMs are January 10th and February 21st. Is that correct?
I think that is correct. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Go with it. Yeah, January. Oh, actually, I'm glad you caught that. I have actually changed the January. Oh, okay. We'll confirm that.
Sorry, yes.
Glad you checked, but we'll take it as January 10th. Yeah.
Is that when it is?
Yeah. Is that what you've got, Susan?
I think I took that off of the list you gave me a couple months ago, but we haven't talked about it in a while. So
We'll confirm them and let you all know. We'll get them up on the website. I have it
On the website, which website?
dive-in.life.
Dive in.
Life. It's on that should be in the links there. And you will get it also we'll send an email out, so everybody will get the email.
Phew, that's good. I get so mixed up with the websites.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm myself not the clearest on the dates right now, but we'll get it all up there and nice and clear.
Thanks.
So, wish you all a wonderful, wonderful festive season if that's something that you do. And oh, Michelle, it occurs to me we could have gone a whole lot more into your question about inquiring into the inner critic. But yes, the bottom line is it's true. We do need to inquire into it. And in the process of that inquiry, what I said, we kind of grow in disengaging from it. And as part of that, sometimes it's useful to practice going, I'm just not listening to you right now. So that's a whole thing. So thanks everybody, and have a good year, and see you in the new year.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have
Bill.
a good
Thank you.
festive season, everybody.
Happy Christmas.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you next year.
Bye.